Thank you for that introduction. I was asked to prepare a presentation talking about PRRS serology and how we use PRRS serology in our system to make decisions about PRRS. Now, we all know that PRRS is a very important disease, a very costly disease, not only in China but around the world. And the more tools we have to manage the disease, the better decisions we can make. So, first of all, let's answer the question: what exactly is serology? We use the terms seropositive or seronegative quite frequently, but I'm not sure that everyone understands exactly what that means. So, when we say serology, what we mean is the study of blood serum, especially relating to the presence or absence of antibodies in that serum. Now, remember, antibodies can take 7 or more days to actually be detectable in the serum after the infection occurs. So really, serology tells us what happened in the past. If I have a sow that's positive by serology today, I know that that infection occurred probably at least 7 days ago, maybe 14 days in the past. So I get an idea of her antibody level, but I don't have any idea of what the actual viral or bacterial infection is in her system today. Okay. The major test we use for PRRS serology is the ELISA. It's an enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, which is a really long and technical term for a test that's been around for 30 plus years. And what the ELISA does is it takes a specially made antibody with a special label on it. We then mix that antibody with some reagents and the swine serum. Our specially labeled antibody then attaches to the antibody that the pig has made against the PRRS virus. This special label then allows us to pass light through our sample and get what we call an optical density, or a measurement of how much light passed through the sample. From that optical density, we can determine how many antibodies, or the level of antibodies in the pig's blood. Now, when you see your ELISA reports for your PRRS serology, you never see the optical density. What you see is something called the S to P ratio. The reason we do this, there are many things that can affect the optical density of a sample. For example, if today the lab technician left it on the bench for 5 minutes, and the day before she left it on the bench for 7 minutes, today it was 85 degrees Fahrenheit, yesterday it was 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Those changes in time and temperature can really affect the level of the optical density. So we use what's called the S to P ratio. In every ELISA test that's run, there are known positive samples included. So what we do then is divide the optical density of the sample by the optical density of the positive control. This gives us an S to P ratio and allows us to compare results at different time points because they've all been standardized back to a known positive. Okay? So what happens after the PRRS infection? The PRRS ELISA detects antibodies that the pig makes to the virus, and what we see here is the first couple days after infection, not much really happens. The pig's immune system is recognizing the infection, starting to deal with it, starting to mount an immune response, but that takes some time. So these first few days, we don't really see anything serologically. Now, after maybe day 4, day 5, we start to see a rise in the antibody level as that pig starts to respond to the infection. This response can vary from pig to pig. It will vary from farm to farm, and even vary depending on whether it's a high-path PRRS virus that infected them or a very low virulent virus that's infected these pigs. But in general, we start to see these antibodies increase, and the cutoff value we use for the ELISA is a 0.4. And in general, 8 to 14 days after infection is when most pigs will start to go above this 0.4 level. So it takes at least a week and sometimes longer for those animals to become seropositive or to reach a level of antibodies in their serum where our PRRS ELISA can detect them and call them positive. The other test that we very commonly use for diagnosis and control of PRRS is the polymerase chain reaction, or the PCR. Now, the PCR works differently. Instead of detecting antibodies that the pig made to the virus, the PCR actually detects the virus itself. It detects the genetic material of the virus. So when we test swine tissues, swine serum, lymph nodes, basically any other tissues, if the PCR is positive, we can be almost completely sure that that pig is infected with the virus. But the PCR behaves, the test results from the PCR behave differently than those from the ELISA. So that 24 hours after infection with the PRRS virus, we will have almost all the pigs that got infected will have a positive PCR. That is, 24 hours after the pig's infected, the virus will have replicated to a level that we can detect it by PCR. Now, the level and the duration of shedding of the PRRS virus depend on a couple different things. Younger pigs will be infected and shed the virus for a longer period of time. Older pigs tend to clear it more quickly. Pigs that have been previously infected or previously vaccinated will clear the virus very quickly. So you need to know not only the previous infection status and the age of the pigs that are being tested, and use that in your interpretation of the PCR results. So unlike the PRRS ELISA, which tells us what happened in the past, the PCR tells us exactly what's going on in that pig right now. If that PCR is positive, we know that that animal is actively infected with the PRRS virus. Now, the other thing to keep in mind about the PRRS virus in pigs is, even though the pig will clear the virus from their blood and we won't be able to detect it in serum anymore, that virus can persist for a long time in other tissues, lymph nodes and other tissues within the pig. And this has been demonstrated to be 210 out to maybe 300 days. And that's the reason when we do a PRRS elimination that we load, close, and homogenize the herd. And the general recommendation for closure is at least 210 days or 7 months, which allows all the animals on the farm to clear that virus from their system so that when we decide to bring in new animals, the existing herd is less likely to begin shedding again and infect our new animals. So this is what viremia and serology look like when they're placed on the same graph. Pig becomes infected right here. We can detect it by PCR very quickly after the infection. The infection will peak and then gradually reduce to a point, perhaps at 10 days, sometimes, especially in younger pigs, even further out, we'll be able to detect the virus in the serum. And then shortly after infection, it takes a little while for the antibody response to wrap up, so that PRRS is very useful, PCR is very useful at detecting infections shortly after they occur, whereas PRRS ELISA or PRRS serology really tells us what happened in the past. So, that's pretty much the end of the science for my presentation, and really the core of what I want to get across to you is in the next few cases. So these are common situations that I run into, and common questions that we ask. How do we interpret the test results we have, and how do we make decisions on our farm based on these results? So the first question is, are these gilts negative? We have a PRRS negative sow herd. Farm has never been exposed to the PRRS virus. This farm puts its its new gilts into isolation for 30 days. After 21 days of isolation, they draw blood and do PRRS testing to confirm that these animals have remained negative. And their protocol is to take 30 samples from this group of gilts. So the question I have as a veterinarian is it safe to bring these new gilts into my clean, PRRS negative sow herd? Okay. So here's the results of our testing. 30 ELISAs. Average S to P ratio is a 0.049. Is it safe to move these animals into my sow herd? Can I be confident that I can move these animals into my sow herd and not infect them with PRRS? The answer to that question is I don't know. I know that 7 days or longer in the past, these animals did not have PRRS, but from 7 days ago until the time I took this sample, I'm not sure what happened. There could have been a PRRS virus that got in there that I can't detect by serology. So really what we need to do is add another test. Serology is a useful tool, but we need to add a PCR to be confident as to what's going on. Oh, all right, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what we generally do then is those same 30 samples that we collected for PRRS serology, we pool them into groups of 5 and test them by PCR. So now with these results, I have completely negative serological tests, completely negative ELISAs, and all of the PCRs that I tested are also negative. So with this information, I can be much more confident that these animals have remained free of PRRS infection and that it's safe to bring them into my sow herd now. Okay. Another question that I commonly get is my farm PRRS stable? So after an outbreak of PRRS, we want to know, when are we producing negative pigs? When are we going to see less disease, less problems in our finishing herd? And after a PRRS break, our goal is to get back to stability as quickly as possible, because dealing with PRRS infected pigs and finishing can be very difficult. They get sick, they don't grow as well as we'd like, we don't make near as much money on them. So on the sow farm, we want to monitor for stability. We want to make sure that we're not circulating virus all around that farm. So after a PRRS break, we start to monthly monitoring of 30 random sows out in gestation, just to see where things are at. So here's the data from March, April, May, June, July, and August after a PRRS break. Oops. So we see that in March we had almost all of the animals positive with an average S to P ratio of a 1.6. April and May, our average S to P ratio has dropped. June, our average S to P ratio drops again. Likewise in July and August. So through these 6 months, our average S to P ratio has been going down every month. So the question is, can we call this farm PRRS stable? And I would argue that a decreasing S to P ratio in sows is a good sign, but it really doesn't tell me a whole lot. What I really need to know is what's going on in my pigs. Because sows that have been previously infected, we know if they get exposed to the virus again, they will clear it very, very quickly. The same virus in a previously exposed sow isn't a problem, but that virus infecting piglets can be a problem. So really what we need to do is go to the farrowing house, collect serum from piglets that are about to be weaned, and test those by PCR. So if we go to the farrowing house and detect the PRRS virus in weaned pigs, that tells us that we're probably not stable. we're still circulating the PRRS virus on our farm because it's moving around and farrowing. So if we look at this example, in March, all of our pools were positive by PRRS. In April, again, all positive. In May, we have 2 negative pools out of 6. In June, we're half and half. July, more negatives, fewer positives. And then in August, more negatives, but we still have positive samples by PCR. So what this tells me is, even though the average S to P ratio in the sows is going down, it's not telling me the whole story. The PRRS PCR is telling me that I'm still circulating virus in the piglets. So these piglets get weaned and go to the finisher, they're still going to circulate PRRS virus amongst themselves. So the addition of the PCR to supplement your serological testing is very important, because the ELISA gives you part of the story, but when you combine the ELISA with a PCR, you start to get the whole story, and you can really start to make decisions. Okay. So these results tell me that I'm still circulating PRRS virus. Now I need to go to the farm and figure out why I'm circulating PRRS virus. If I would expect that these should be PCR negative by now, I need to go to the farm and find out what's going on. Why am I still circulating PRRS virus out here? Did we not get the farm closed long enough, and we're bringing in naive gilts that continue to reinfect those piglets? Is the farm not adhering to all-in, all-out procedures in the farrowing room, so we're keeping young pigs back and continuing to perpetuate the virus in farrowing? So a whole bunch of different things that could be going on, but they all, to really figure it out, it involves going to the farm and following up on these test results. Why are we not getting the test results we expect? We heard this morning about the need to eliminate PRRS in our herds. PRRS negative sow herds produce better than PRRS positive sow herds. If we get an infection in a sow herd, we know how to eliminate the virus. That procedure has been done many, many times. The question is, we need to have some measurements to help us down the road to figure out when it's safe to start bringing in negative animals. We want to have some data behind our decisions. So if we take this farm, for example, it's a farm that broke with PRRS in November. They decided to do a load, close, and homogenize. So by load, close, and homogenize, they brought in as many gilts as they possibly could. Then they closed the herd to new introductions, brought no more animals onto the farm, and they homogenized the immunity by using a modified live vaccine 2 times to all the animals on the farm. Their last PRRS vaccination was given on December 15th, which would make our 210 days, the time when we feel it's safe to start bringing animals in, July 15th of that year. So what we want to know is, we're getting close to our July 15th date. Is it safe to bring naive animals onto this farm? Can I bring new animals in, open up the farm, and be confident that they will not become infected by the same strain of PRRS that happened to us back in November? And to do this farm has been monitoring serum monthly from sows, 30 sows every month. So this is what the data looks like. They started the monitoring in March. Average S to P ratio of a 1.6. You see that almost all those sows are positive at this point. April, similar results, but we see the average S to P ratio has dropped. We've gone from a 1.6 to a 1.59. In May, similar results. Our average S to P ratio continues to decrease, and it looks like the individual animals their antibody levels are decreasing. Similar trend in June, July, into August. We've had a decrease in our average S to P ratio every month, a slight decrease here, and then a dramatic decrease from April to May. Stayed steady here till July, and then another decrease in August. So my question to you is, we're now in August. Is it safe to bring in naive animals? Can we safely bring them into the farm and have confidence that we'll be able to continue to bring in animals and make this farm PRRS negative? Again, I'm going to argue that the PRRS ELISA does not give us enough information to make that decision. We need to add PCR, and specifically we need to add PCR on weaned pigs in our farrowing house. So we see here, in March, we've got some positive pools. In April, we still have some positive pools. In May, so we vaccinated the last time the 15th of December. Our May testing, all of our piglets in farrowing, all of those pools are PCR negative for PRRS. That trend continues in June, July, and August. So we've had 4 months of failure. We have not been able to detect the virus in weaned pigs for 4 months, which is, to me, a very good sign. This would indicate to me that if I've failed to detect the virus circulating in weaned pigs for 4 months, I can have confidence that I'm not circulating virus on my farm, and when I bring in naive gilts, I should be successful at moving the virus off my farm. Now, a couple notes on testing weaned pigs. When I test for PRRS in weaned pigs, I don't test the 30 healthiest pigs in the farrowing room. I go into the farrowing room and I find the 30 sickest looking, worst looking pigs I can find. Because I'm very confident if I take samples from the 30 least healthy pigs in that room, if I fail to detect the PRRS virus in those pigs, I can be very confident that the PRRS virus is not circulating in any of the other healthier pigs in that room. So, again, the average S to P ratio does not tell us the whole story. The PCR testing and knowing the status of our weaned pigs really completes the picture and allows us to make better decisions. Okay, we'll switch from sow farms now to an example of a finishing farm. This farm is broken with PRRS, and they're having some trouble with PRRS out in finishing. They believe that they're stable, but don't know for sure. So let's take a look at some of their data and see what we can piece together from this data. We see here that at 3 weeks of age, so right at weaning, we have an average S to P ratio of about a 0.7, and 73% of our pigs are ELISA positive. If we continue to follow these pigs, at 7 weeks of age, we see that we've dropped from 73% ELISA positive down to less than 50% ELISA positive, and our average S to P ratio has dropped from a 0.7 down to a 0.45. So, very, very nice decrease in the average S to P ratio, and a pretty hefty decrease in the number of positive animals by ELISA. Something funny starts to happen though. At 11 weeks of age, our average S to P ratio rises, and the percentage of pigs that are ELISA positive rises. This is going in the opposite direction of what we want or what we would expect, such that at 19 weeks, almost all the pigs are ELISA positive, and at 24 weeks, every pig that we test is now ELISA positive. We had a very nice trend early on where our ELISA was decreasing, but all of a sudden we've gone from less than 50% to 100% ELISA positive. So what can we make of this situation? I'm going to argue that we can't tell a lot from this data. There's so many other factors that go on. In order to make sense of this data, we really need to add another test. And again, that would be a PCR. So if we take a look at what's going on here, our test at 3 weeks, where we pool samples, weaned pigs at the sow farm are all PRRS negative by PCR. So that would indicate to me that we're doing things right in our sow farm. We're not circulating the virus in the sow farm. We're actually weaning virus-negative pigs. We see here at 7 weeks, where we saw a dramatic drop in the percent positive and a drop in the average S/P ratio, we still have all negative PCR results. So all 6 of our pools are PCR negative. At weaning and 4 weeks later, we can't detect the virus in those pigs. But something changes here at 11 weeks. All of a sudden, we've got 1, 2, 3. Half of our pools are now positive. So our previously negative pigs, for some reason, have gone positive. And we see that virus continues to spread throughout that population for the next 8 weeks, such that at 19 weeks, almost all of our pools are positive, and even at 24 weeks, we still have positive pools. So what's going on here? How does this happen? We're weaning negative pigs. We're pretty confident about that. There's really two situations I can think of. One would be, we are doing a good job at the sow farm. These pigs are truly virus negative coming out of the sow farm, but we're doing something when they get to the finisher to mess that up. That may be that when those pigs get to the finisher, there are still older pigs left on that site, and these new pigs are getting infected from the older pigs on site. This could be a brand new introduction from a neighboring farm. Maybe we did get our site completely empty, and PRRS blew in on the wind from somebody else's farm. Another option could be, maybe we did get the site empty, but we didn't get it clean enough. There was still organic material left that those pigs got exposed to, and we started the cycle of the PRRS virus again. The second thing that could be happening is, yes, we did have 6 pools representing 30 pigs that were all PCR negative, but it could be, it only takes 1 pig to infect the whole herd. It could be that there's just such a low level on our sow herd that we failed to detect it with our testing, and it's gotten ramped up in finishing. Again, this is a situation where we can get some ideas about what's going on from the testing, but in order to answer these questions and fix things in the future, we really need to get out to the farm, observe what's going on, ask a lot of questions of the farm manager and the farm staff about how they're moving pigs, what they're doing with pigs, and figure out why our nice PRRS negative pigs that we're weaning are suddenly going positive out and finishing. So when I started in practice 13 years ago, in the US, we did probably 80% of our testing with serology. In the last decade, that is almost completely reversed. In the United States, probably 80% of our PRRS testing now is PCR. 20% would be serology. I hope I've demonstrated to you that serology does give you some information, and you can make some decisions based on serology, but I'm going to argue that PCRs give you much, much more information. And the combination of those two really helps you to make a decision. When we think about how much PRRS can cost not only the industry, but how much PRRS can cost you on your farm when you add up the number of sick sow days, the decrease in reproductive performance, the abortions, the pre-wean mortality, the decrease in growth performance of those pigs throughout their lifetime, when you start to add all those things up, PRRS gets to be a very expensive disease on your farm. So you should demand the best diagnostic testing from your laboratories that you can. One of the things I was asked to sum up with is, where does Asia need to go? And I hope I've demonstrated to you that I believe that we in China and Asia in general need to really move towards using PCR to help us make those decisions. The increase in capabilities for real-time PCR over the last decade, along with the tremendous decrease in cost of those samples, what it takes to process those samples, we need to demand from our diagnostic laboratories that they have the capability to report to us real-time PCR results, because the decisions we have to make regarding how we enter gilts to the farm, how we roll farms negative, what we do with wean pigs and how we raise pigs and grow finish, these are very expensive decisions that need to be made on a daily basis. We need to demand from our diagnostic laboratories that they give us the tools to be able to make these decisions. They give us the tools so that we can make the right decision more often. Thank you all for your attention. I certainly appreciate it, and we'll have questions later.